cooking what is called an off-the-menu special at Pascal's Manali. Of course, anybody who has dined at Pascal's Manali restaurant knows that they are famous for their oysters and their oyster bar. And so this is a dish that's been on the menu and off the menu, and it drives them. They gave me the recipe, we worked on the recipe together, but now that it's in the cookbook and people are paying attention to it, they're having to cook that. It might be back on the menu soon because they're cooking it there a lot. And it's simple, and the secret is really just fresh Louisiana seafood, fresh Louisiana oysters. Okay, so how we're going to do this, we're going to make, I'm going to just move this off the burner for a second because I don't want the butter to burn. We're going to make a blonde roux with butter and flour, and then we're going to add the green onions and the parsley and the garlic and saute it. And then our oyster liquor, the big secret ingredient is the oyster liquor. And I'll be happy to tell you all how you can kind of stretch the liquor that comes in packed with your oysters. And finish it with a little Worcestershire and a little hot sauce and a little salt and pepper. Toss the pasta in, and that's it. It's easy, it's simple, it's delicious, it's a wonderful thing. So what we're going to do now is make a blonde roux. Thank you. Okay. And to make that blonde roux, it's a simple combination of flour and butter. And of course, this is delicious. But this is going to be extra good oyster spaghetti because we're making it with that delicious butter from Feliciana's Best butter. I guess so. I am from New Orleans, and my first cookbook was the Crescent City Farmers Market cookbook. So I know the vendors that do both markets, but that's a vendor that I've never met before. But their butter is so gorgeous. It's such a beautiful, deep, rich color. And the original recipe that we'll serve for calls for, and this looks like a lot of butter, but that's because I've grown this recipe really big for you all. So the original recipe calls for 4 tablespoons, but we're just making a blonde roux. Now what is a blonde roux? A blonde roux is a roux that is French. It's a very classic French roux. It's the roux that will thicken best for you because the flour molecules are barely cooked in a blonde roux. The flour molecules just cook long enough so that you get, the way you can tell, because there's no color change in a blonde roux. I think that's about equal parts of butter and flour. It's looking good to me. Does it look good to you all? And you can't see, there's no mirror. Well, I'll show you. Isn't it beautiful? Okay, so what we're going to do, who has eaten at Pascal's Manali restaurant before? It's the home of the barbecued shrimp. I think that's probably what everybody thinks of them for. But they've got so many delicious dishes. And the reason that I wanted to write the cookbook was because they are the second oldest continuously operating family-owned restaurant in New Orleans. The oldest one being, of course, Antoine. And the book that I wrote prior to writing the Manali's book was the Two Jacks Restaurant Cookbook. And Two Jacks is the second oldest continuously operating restaurant, period, in New Orleans. They've been around since 1856. Manali's has only been around since 1913. Two Jacks has had 3 owners. Manali's has a 5th generation that's actually working in the restaurant today. And there's some toddlers who are the 6th generation. So I have a lot of hope for Manali's restaurant. It's 2 completely different projects because in the Two Jacks restaurant book, we learn the story of French Creoles in New Orleans and the traditional French Creole cooking. In the Manali's book, we focus on the Italian Creole. It's the nose trick. This is how you know when a blonde roux is done. You can tell with your nose. because there's no color change. We're just looking for the flour to not have that flat cardboard smell anymore and just have a sort of a toasty, nutty aroma. Okay. It's made. If anybody's really curious, you can come give it a sniff. But you see, there's really no. You see how it's like toasty and nutty? When you first add the flour, it's a very flat, like scent. Okay. Oh, you found it? Okay. All of the paraphernalia we have to come from New Orleans with to be able to cook, talk, and sign books. And after the cooking demo, I will be selling and signing my new Pascal Manali books. Okay, so now what are we going to do? Now we're going to add the green onions. And yes, these are the whites and the greens of the onions. Add that. Stir it up. And they're just going to saute a little bit. And then we're going to add some garlic also. A little bit of garlic. How could that be bad? We all love the garlic. All right. Oh, that smells so good. I wait and add the parsley later. A lot of the old-fashioned recipes, they're sauteing the parsley too. I don't think that's a good idea. I wait and it's going to go in at the end. Now, this is the classic Manali version of oysters and spaghetti dish. If I was cooking this at home, I would probably add maybe some fennel. I might add a shot of Pernod or herb sage to it because I love that kind of licorice-y flavor that you get with the oysters. After all, that's what makes oysters Rockefeller so good. So, about Pascal Manali and the why, first of all, one of the big questions is, why does it have that weird name, Pascal, apostrophe, possessive, Manali? What's a Manali anyway? Well, it was Frank Manali, who was Pascal Radasta's uncle, who came in the late 1800s from Sicily. They were actually, they were Albrisi people. They were from Tessa Entellina, which is a very special little village in Sicily because they have a different, more like a Greek Orthodox religion instead of the traditional Catholic religion, and they even speak a different language. So the Albrisi are a special sort. And Frank Manali and his whole family came over on a steamer, and you know, that was the reason we've got so many people of particularly Sicilian descent living in southern Louisiana is because there was actually a steamer that ran from the port of Palermo to the port of New Orleans. It took a little bit over 2 weeks on average for them to make that trip. And it would come over with immigrants and lemons, citrus, in particular lemons. The Sicilian lemons were the most prized lemon in the world, really up until in America, Florida and California came on with their citrus agriculture. And that didn't happen until the late 20s, early 30s. So anyway, they'd come over the steamer ship with the people and the fruit. And then they would go back to Sicily with sugar and in particular cotton. That was a big export out of the port. And then they'd be back again. So he came over as a little 10-year-old boy. But he had an older sister whose name was Francesca. Francesca got married to a Mr. Radasta pretty quickly after they got to New Orleans. And so then she began to have this big family. And that's where Pascal comes in. But the Francesca's boys were just a little bit younger than their Uncle Frank. Okay, I got this all nicely sauteed. Turn it down just a little bit. Doesn't it smell good? And now we're going to let it start to cook together with some of this oyster liquid. Now I'm going to stop the story and get back to Frank Manali in a second. Let me tell you about it. This is where all the flavor of your dish is going to come in. And so, you get those oysters home, and it's just got a little bit of liquid. That's what we call the liquid in the oysters, is the oyster liquor. Where does it come from? That's the juice that comes out of the oysters when you're shucking them. And so, what do you do if, for instance, you can't run down in New Orleans like we tend to P&J Oysters and buy oyster liquor, because they do sell it. Langenstein's grocery store in New Orleans always has oyster liquor for sale. Well, I just cheat a little bit because, all of the oysters that you buy have been washed. Washed oysters, what that means is when they shuck them, the way the shucking process goes is they shuck the oysters, the oyster meat falls down into one bucket, and the liquor falls into another bucket, and they collect that because it is like liquid gold. And so the washed oysters, they pick up a little bit of the extra water that they're being sprayed with on this screen that they go around and around. So consequently, you can encourage the oysters to give you a little bit more oyster liquor. I just take the oysters and I put them in a big bowl, and then I measure how much extra liquor I'm going to need, and I measure that in water, and I let the oysters sit in that water for a little while. And it's all the same oyster flavor, whether it's in here or whether it's in the oysters. So maybe the oysters aren't going to be as salty and starkly oyster tasting because you diluted it a little bit. But that's what you're making up for with the oyster liquor. Okay. There we go. How do you like that? We are going to be able to eat so quickly, you're not going to believe how fast this dinner is. So anyway, Frank Manali's nephews go to work with him at Manali. And Frank Manali, and he founds the restaurant in 1913, 105 years ago. And in 1937, what he thought was a bad cold actually turned out to be pneumonia, and he died unexpectedly of pneumonia. And when he died, his nephews, who had been there forever and ever, they just sort of took up where Uncle Frank left off. And the eldest nephew, Pascal, he was the big mover and shaker. He was just one of those dynamic guys. I'll show you some pictures. He was just one of those dynamic guys that everybody wanted to know. They said, oh, everybody wanted to be a pal of Pascal. And that is how the restaurant got so incredible. Here, this is one of my favorite pictures. Here is Pascal Manali, and the only picture you're going to find of him where he's not very formally dressed in a suit, looking like a real gosh dang. I love this picture of him because in his white apron, I like to imagine he forgot to go into the kitchen and invent that famous barbecued shrimp. And so how does the restaurant become Pascal's Manali? Well, eventually he adds his name to the name of the restaurant, but he keeps his uncle's name, Manali, always attached to it. Okay. So this. No, I think I got it all together. Got any questions for me? Anybody have any questions? So, how did those delicious barbecued shrimp get invented? Well, in the 1950s, Manali's was a place where sports people hung out, politicians hung out. It was the place to see and be seen. And that's why when you go to Manali's, the walls are lined with 8x10 photographs of celebrities and other famous people who just loved to eat at Manali. So Vincent Sutro was a gentleman who was very involved with the racetrack. I don't know if he owned horses or if he just raced horses. Now, at Finale's restaurant at that time and earlier, it wasn't just a restaurant under that roof. There was also a little room where there was a bookie, and there was a barber shop too. So you could place your bets, get a haircut, and have a great steak. Because originally, if you've been to Finale's, the dining room on the right-hand side was an addition. It was a later addition in the 1950s when the butcher, Charles Ciascio, who had been there since 1913, when Charles decided to close his butcher shop, that's when Pascal acquired that extra room and the restaurant expanded. But anyway, Vincent Sutro is in New Orleans because of the horse racing, and he tells his buddy Pascal about a particularly delicious shrimp dish he had enjoyed in Chicago. And Pascal was very interested, and he said, let me see what I can do with that. So he went into the kitchen, and the next thing you know, he has invented barbecued shrimp. And Vincent Sutro said, oh, this is even better than what he had remembered. I'm going to now use two hands. Okay, so to see how nicely that roux thickened up this sauce. Oh, it smells so good, but it's going to need some seasoning. Sure, it's going to need salt. Particularly because that was unsalted butter that I used. But I always believe that you can add salt. And so I prefer cooking with unsalted butter because, of course, it doesn't matter when it's farmer's market butter. But traditionally, unsalted butter usually is sweeter and fresher than salted butter because salt acts as a preservative in the butter. And salt also helps the butter retain water. And so often, not in the farmer's market, but with conventional butter, you will actually get less butter fat because of the water that can be incorporated into that salt butter, that butter with salt. Okay, so we're going to add a little bit of Worcestershire. And remember, this looks like a lot, but that's because I'm almost quadrupling the recipe. Yeah. So you see, that's what the sauce is looking like right now. We're going to add. Anybody have any questions about anything? Okay, so Pascal. Pascal is very involved with politicians. And F. Edward Hebert, of course, Louisiana's longest serving representative in the House of Representatives, he credited the success of his political career with Pascal. There was a guest book that, luckily, I'm telling you, it's so much easier to write a book about dead people than it is about live people. If the lady with the two checkbook, just hold the two checkbook up, see, one book is filled with dead people. This book has some dead people in it too. But there is a fourth generation that's alive and well, and getting everybody to agree is quite the trick. Okay, so now I'm going to add Crystal hot sauce. I tend to cook with Crystal more than Tabasco because Crystal, I believe, has more pepper flavor in it. You get the flavor, and it's not quite as intensely hot. And now we're going to add the oysters. Now, I didn't know how many people might be here for oysters and spaghetti. The way they do it at Finale's and the way you'll be doing it at home is with whole oysters. But I gave these oysters a little bit of a coarse chop so that everybody can have some oysters. Okay, and we're going to add the other container of oysters. It is. All right. So, Pascal's Finale restaurant was such a place. It's like a microcosm of a different time. Some of you all might know a Baton Rouge longtime resident named Lisa Haller. Lisa Haller is the daughter of Martin Rudosky. And I was so fortunate that when I was writing the book, Uncle Martin as most of the family calls him, was still alive. He passed away in May, and I am eternally grateful to Lisa and to her daddy. Here's Mark. If you ever ate at Benally's in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, he was probably the man who was at the front door there. And I'm going to tell you a story that Martin told me that has been substantiated by a lot of folks. It just seems insane these days. So, you know, it was really, really hard to get into Manal. The bar would be packed. The bar would be packed of people waiting for a table. And so this was such a big deal that there was a payphone at the front door, and there was a loudspeaker. So Mark, who was running the front door, was at the podium, and he'd call out people's names. And sometimes he'd call out your name, and you'd get nervous because you didn't think you could get through the crowd. People would call on the payphone and say, I'm here, don't give my table away. So on one of those nights when it was pretty wild there in the bar, a regular customer came in and said, I need a table, Martin. How long is it going to be? Martin said, you're going to have to wait about an hour and a half. And the man looked at Martin. He said, the hell I am. I'm not going to wait. Martin said, yeah, you're going to wait. And the man said, I am not. Martin reached across the bar, grabbed the man's necktie. With his other hand, he grabbed a hammer and a nail, and he nailed the guy's tie to the bar. And he said, yeah, you're going to wait. Well, what a different time we live in today. Do you know that that man waited? And when he got released from the bar, he calmly went to the restaurant and had his dinner. Now, that would not happen today. There's a lot of things that happened at Benally's that might not happen today. For instance, everybody seemed to have guns. The folks who worked there was like a little cubby that is still behind the bar near the podium, which is where all the guns were kept. You have to check your gun at the door. There's a story about a policeman who was there in the late 60s who had a little bit too much to drink, and he was singing opera and got so carried away that he shot off his gun in the bar. And he was a policeman. There was terrible trouble about that. And then in Frank Benally's time, even though everybody swore that you didn't bring the receipts home at night, there was a lot of money running around. And there's a story, so this is in the early 1930s, of Frank Benally leaving the restaurant, going home to his house. They all lived in the area in New Orleans we call Broadmoor. Pascal's home was on Louisiana Avenue Parkway. And I'll show you a picture and tell you something about that in a minute. But about his wife, Frances, I love that story. But anyway, Frank Benally is going home to his house on Elba Street in Broadmoor, and they pull into the garage, and the way the story goes that was in the newspaper, somebody said, stick them up, now we've got you. And so he reached, Frank does, in the car, his wife's in the car with him, he grabs his gun, and he shoots at the would-be robbers who take off in the neighborhood. But luckily, one of his nephews who lived down the street was also on the way home. So he followed the guys, but they'd exchanged gunfire. So then Frank was treated at Baptist Hospital that night for a gunshot wound in his arm, but he still swore that he didn't know those people and that he didn't bring any money home. So I don't know, but there was lots of wild tales. Now about Pascal, these people just really they tickle me. You know, they're very different. They believe that they are different from all of the rest of the Sicilians. And of course, in New Orleans, there were so many Sicilians, and most of them lived in the back of the French Quarter, that they called that area in the back of the French Quarter Little Palermo. And none of the Benallys, none of the Radastas, none of the Day Polices, nobody lived in the French Quarter. They all lived uptown because they were very swell uptown folks. And I absolutely love this picture. Everybody see this lady? This is Frances Radosta, Pascal's wife. And she looks like she's pretty done up there. She's got her pearls and an orchid and her big stole. Well, I love this picture of her because what you learn when you research these people is that Frances, Pascal's wife, along with his sisters, Vita Rose, Mamie, and Lulu, were all in the kitchen on Louisiana Avenue Parkway every day making meatballs, making the tufoli, stuffing the artichokes. So she may look really swell here, but the serious cooking was going on in her kitchen and being run over to the restaurant. I just think that's such a wonderful tale. Isn't that great? And you know, I'm crazy. So it's so hard to get these stories and these pictures out of people. It's really hard to get them to agree, as I said before. And finally, I just about gotten all the photographs out of them, and I asked the fateful question, is there anything in the attic? And they said, well, I don't know, Poppy, you can go have a look. I'm looking for my favorite picture, one of my favorite pictures. Y'all know how we are when it snows. You know, we just go crazy when it snows down here in southern Louisiana. I love this picture. Apparently there was a snowstorm on New Year's Eve in the year 1963. So even though the picture's notated New Year's Eve 1964, that's really 1964, January 1st, 1964. And isn't that great to see the restaurant in the snow? I just love that. So Pascal unfortunately passes away at a very early age of a heart attack. And his family again rises to the forefront, and that's why the family is still there today. His two daughters, Virginia and Frances. Frances was anybody who ate at Benally's in the late 70s, early 80s knows Frances. Frances was pretty swell. She always had on, I got a picture of her in here wearing her big shrimp diamond brooch. Frances and her sister Virginia both married brothers, the Dayfulleys brothers, and they were from Myrtle Grove. So we're talking about these very swell uptown people, and the two daughters married these boys from Myrtle Grove. Well, Frances' husband, Stephen, he moves to the city with Frances, and they run the restaurant. Virginia, she goes to live with what's his name? Savare, sorry. S-A-V-A-R-E. But Savare is the brother down in Myrtle Grove. And the brother is the one who's running the Myrtle Grove packing plant. Now, what were they packing at this canning facility in Myrtle Grove? Number one, they were packing oysters. They also packed anything in season, figs, tomatoes, and there are these wonderful stories of the fourth generation who really grew up like the country mice down in Myrtle Grove. They were heroes, they went hunting, but my favorite story that they used to do is they found a piece of corrugated sheet metal, and next to Myrtle Grove packing plant, there was a pile of shelves that they say was at least 3 stories high. And so those bad little boys used to climb up the pile of oyster shells with their corrugated metal and pretend like they were sledding. So what do Louisiana boys do if they want to go sledding? They find a pile of oyster shells. I love that story. So anyway, I think Celeste is so wonderful. You see, she's wearing a chef's jacket. I wear an apron. Although I have a chef's diploma and a cooking teacher's diploma, I have spent most of my life as a cooking teacher. And so I've always worn the apron because I'm not a chef. I tell people I only play one on TV once in a while. So, with the tasting spoon, it's so important. One spoon goes in the pot, the other one goes in your mouth. Oh, I love that trick. It's the nice thing to do. And I always can tell, people say, well, how can you tell which is your tasting spoon? The one that goes in my mouth always has lipstick on it. Okay, now the only thing that I haven't added yet is pepper. Now, in the original recipe, their use of white pepper. But forgive me, y'all can use your white pepper. I really, really like freshly cracked black pepper. We're going to add the pepper. And I'm going to turn it on just a little bit more. Did it get it on yet? Okay. Nope, not on yet. Okay, I just don't want the parsley to shock and make it cold. Alright, so we're going to mix all this in. Now here's the fresh chopped parsley. Copious amount of fresh chopped parsley goes in. Stir it up. Doesn't it look good? And wait till you taste it. And I guess you figured out by now how easy this recipe is. Anybody have any questions about anything? Now here at the market, you know, I'm showing you how to make this over pasta. There's gorgeous stone ground grits. You know, you could add, if you took this base and added enough cooked rice to it, you'd have a rice oyster dressing for the holidays. Just my great grandmother, see, we didn't have that bread dressing growing up because Memon came from down the bayou and they had rice dressing. And so she used to make this oyster. When I teach it, I've always called it oyster jambalaya because if you're not from here, you really don't know. Oh, I think it might be perfect.